So we read from Prabhupada diary, and I see a mark. So it starts on that page.
It's where this mark is?
Yeah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachalini Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Pashati Deshatarini Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So it's in the middle of a story. I don't know the beginning, but I carry on reading. Srila Prabhupada, it's called Shri Vrindavan Dharma. Prabhupada smiled. He was neither surprised nor critical. From one angle, he told us that it was the natural course, that his politics, he was a politician, that you cannot blame. Politics require all these things. Who remember who Prabhupada is talking about?
Jimmy Carter, and there was a talk about the present president with Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's about the Peace Corps. It's about Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. Yeah. That he started the Peace Corps. Okay. A politician cannot be a saintly person. That is not possible. For politics, he has to do so many things that is necessary. Just like Arjuna wanted to be a non-violent, immediately it was condemned by Krishna. What is this nonsense? You are a military man, non-violent. And similarly, politicians, they require all this. Businessmen must deal in black market. It is inevitable. Otherwise, he cannot improve, because the world is bad. If you become honest, then you cannot become prosperous. So, you see, it's so nice because when we read Leelas, where Prabhupada talks with the disciples, it's very, very personal. You know, you can, even you didn't meet Srila Prabhupada, you can get to know him very, very well. And sometimes he will say even things a little different according to time and circumstances. And here he's talking about the politicians. And in his lifetime, Srila Prabhupada approached a lot of politicians because actually they are managing the affairs of the world. So if they can be influenced by spirituality, the world can become a much better place. And you probably heard, but it's quite interesting at the moment. There was a new president elected in India. I forgot her name, just a few days ago. And it's a lady, and she belonged to the lower caste. There is still, although it's not supposed to be in India, there is still the caste system. And she belongs to a tribe, but she's very, very educated. And she's very devoted to Krishna. So when she was invested as a president, she she actually said, she was thanking and saying, all glories to Mahaprabhu, to Lord Chaitanya. And then she said, Jai Jagannath. And all after, when she actually swore, you know, to become president, then everybody in the audience, maybe not everybody, but majority, were actually saying, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. Of course, even the Prime Minister is very, very favorable to Krishna consciousness. He always sends letters of appreciation regarding Prabhupada and ISKCON. But he's very, he was a brahmachari when he was young. And he really liked that ISKCON is actually promoting spiritual Vedic culture. But he's very accused by some Westerners and some other part of people in the world of being pro what they call Hindu. But he really likes Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada, he tried to approach Indira Gandhi when she was in power, when she was the Prime Minister. But it was a very hard time for Indira Gandhi. She didn't receive him, but she received Yamuna and Gurudas later on. You might have heard, and you can find on internet, Srila Prabhupada wrote a beautiful letter to Gandhi, because he was actually a follower of Gandhi when he was young. And in his letter, he's telling Gandhi to actually stop being a politician. And he tells him now you should use your power, your influence to give people Krishna consciousness. And he told him, if not, you will die a very infamous death. And that's actually what happened to Gandhi. He was actually killed by his own people because he was trying to unite the Muslims and the Hindu. And the very extremist Hindu, they didn't like it. And he was actually killed, he was shot like that. So Prabhupada said, politicians, they cannot be a saintly person. And Gandhi, he was like that. So it goes on. And when we read these pastimes, it's like we are with Prabhupada. You know, you can imagine yourself being with the devotees around Prabhupada and Prabhupada talking. He becomes very, very much present, very much alive. That was the worldly situation. But as far as spiritual dealings go, he explained that these are quite different. Brahmana's dealing must be very straight and honest. They are not meant for politics or business. They are for transcendental knowledge. And beyond that, he said, the position of devotee is also different. Krishna conscious person should be all-inclusive. That's very interesting. He must be a politician, he must be a brahmana, he must be a kshatriya, he must be a shudra, everything, all-inclusive. You know all these terms, and nobody is just new from yesterday. Everybody, you know. So it's really interesting, and it shows how difficult it is to be. It's simple, and at the same time it is difficult to be a devotee. Like Prabhupada, he said, I've done only 50% of my mission. He said, I've given a Krishna consciousness, but we have to establish Varnashram Dharma. It means a Vedic, spiritualized Vedic civilization to try to uplift humanity. It includes politics. And if you ask the devotees to be part of Varnashram Dharma, to be listed, so in the temple, almost everybody will think, actually, I want to become a Brahmana, you know. Or somebody who is very humble will say, oh, I'm just a Shudra. But it's very hard for a devotee to know who we are in the system of Varnashram Dharma. Because here Prabhupada gives very, very clearly the answer. A devotee should be all-inclusive, should be everything. He should be a politician. It means we have to have behavior that are not saintly sometimes to be a politician. But he has to be a Brahmana. Brahmana means truthfulness. And he has to include everything, both honest and dishonest sometimes. So, and he has to be a Brahmana, studying the scripture, being very clean. And at the same time, if he is asked, he has to be a Shudra, doing construction work, even in the Vedic time, what the civilization is thinking is absolutely wonderful nowadays, you know, to be an artist, a singer. That was Shudras, so devotees, they do drama, they can clean the bathroom, and so this is wonderful. A devotee has to be all-inclusive and not to identify with our position, you know. Whatever service we're doing, we discussed yesterday that book distribution is so wonderful and one of the most wonderful service, but in a way, always we have to remember that's the intention that counts for Krishna. Krishna can do everything himself, but that's the intention that counts. So even if our service is to clean the toilets, we can become Krishna conscious by cleaning the toilet, by serving prasadam, by everything. It can be the same power as doing deity worship or distributing books. It's just the intention, and the intention is to be our creativity, and it has to become voluntary. And we have to use all the talents Krishna gave us, all the intelligence to do that service. For example, cleaning the toilet, we can be creative. We can think, I'm going to use some pure essential oil, or, you know, things like that. But for Krishna and the Vaishnava. So, because the devotee is transcendental, in other words, Srila Prabhupada says, he is neither a Brahmana, neither a Shudra, never, and Prabhupada is quoting a verse, Naham vipranachana la patilna yatil va. It's a verse from Padyavali 63. Neither of this. In other side is everything. That is Krishna conscious. As Krishna is sometimes a coward boy, sometimes a politician, he's a coward boy where? In Vrindavan. He's a politician where? Yeah, in a special moment he became a politician. You know, before the battle of Kurukshetra, he received Duryodhana, and he received Arjuna. And he says, to one of you, I'm giving my army, and to the other one, I will come myself, but I will not fight. So he's a politician. Huh? What else? Sometimes Krishna is dancing, he's an artist, he's everything, he's not one-sided. So as devotees, we should be like that. Srila Prabhupada used to say, we should do the needful. No? Sometime you will be sitting here giving a class, maybe to thousands of people, and sometimes you will just sweep the floor, but you will be the same, you will do it for the pleasure, the service of Krishna and the Vaishnava. Prabhupada inquired a little from Mahavira what books were being sold at the program, like she's here. No. A devotee was asking, is Srila Prabhupada pleased when books are distributed? And here, Prabhupada is actually asking, how many books are being sold in the program? And then he returned to the subject of the new American president. Oh, it's somebody else now, it's not Kennedy, it's Jimmy Carter. Sorabi, you know, he was, because he left the body, a wonderful, wonderful godbrother from Holland, and he was an architect. So he built Krishna Balaram Temple, Bombay Temple, and a few other temples. He provided further encouraging news. Yes, I got a letter for Dham Dhyaksha 2 months ago. He was invited to the White House. He had an exhibition at Vancouver, that Habitat. So it was a world conference of solution to life, living. So he was invited. He met some of the officials there. He was invited to Washington, but he had to wait for Carter to become the president, because then it would be 50% more favorable, because they had a relationship. Then he said, there is a great chance that they will help us in India. So he's going to go there and speak with them in Washington, D.C. Surab said that Dharma Dhyaksha Prabhu was going to talk with them about our proposed development of Mayapur. So that was at the beginning to develop our beautiful temple in Mayapur. In the beginning it was very, very difficult. People in Mayapur, even Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, they wouldn't sell land. And somehow or other, it worked. And in the beginning, who has been to Mayapur? Not yet, some of you. Huh? So when you go to Mayapur, at the main entrance, there is a straw house. In the beginning, it was even smaller than it is now. It was a straw hut. That's where Srila Prabhupada was living. And he loved that straw hut. But soon, he was thinking of all of us. He was thinking the Westerners, they don't like, it's difficult for the Westerners, austerity. So he told to make a big, big building for the devotees. He wanted us very much, if possible, to go to the Holy Dham to get some spiritual strength. And I remember it took me time to go to the Holy Dham. First, devotees at the time, we didn't have much Lakshmi. to buy tickets. But Prabhupada wrote in Krishna book that you cannot go to Vrindavan by purchasing a ticket. So we didn't think of ever of going to Vrindavan. And one day, Prabhupada came to London. He was on the Vyasa-sana. And he was beaming with a big, big smile. And he said, all of you, I invite you to Vrindavan. You know, it was going to be the opening of Krishna Balaram temple. And I remember feeling so ecstatic. I said, if Prabhupada invites us, we can go. So I went to my temple president, because we didn't have any personal money. And I asked him, Prabhu, did you hear what Srila Prabhupada said? Can you give me some money to buy a ticket? He says, well, Mondakini, Prabhu, you didn't really understood what Prabhupada meant. And I thought, oh, I heard. Then I went to the treasurer and I asked him the same thing. You heard Prabhupada is inviting us to come to Vrindavan. Can you give me, the sum to buy the ticket? Same answer. You didn't mean that. So I found one person in the temple who understood the same way. Maybe you know her, Malati Devi. She was the wife of Shyamasundar Prabhu. And she said, yes, you heard right. We're going to collect, and in the evening we put some civil dress and we went to the pubs. She said, we're going to go to the pubs. In England, it's a lot of pubs. At the time, only men were in the pubs. So we came and we had big smile, we were young, little beautiful, and the people were so drunk. But because we were smiling and young, they gave a lot, and in 2 weeks we could go to Vrindavan. And I told them the truth. I said, my spiritual master wants us to go to Vrindavan, can you help? And they were so drunk they didn't hear. And that's the holy Dham. So here it's the beginning of the development in Mayapur. I'll carry on a little. It's going to be a short Srimad Bhagavatam. And maybe we read the verse, and if you want, you can carry on with the verse tomorrow, because it's a very beautiful verse. So, he explained to Prabhupada that Daksha is one of our back to Godhead right. Indeed, the Vedic habitat exhibit, habitat, it's how to live, housing and everything. With Gurudas Swami at the United Nations Conference in early June. Prabhupada remembered reading the pamphlet Dham Dhyaksha had sent him during his stay in Hawaii in May. His article, one is there? Yes, I said. Simple living, high thinking. You saw that. Prabhupada nodded. It was a well-written document that he had enjoyed and felt had explained his idea clearly, succinctly. So he met him, Prabhupada asked. Surab clarified. Not Carter. He met the government officials who were representing the United States government at that exhibition. And they were very favorable. They were one of the most favorable, he said, the United States. Prabhupada was happy with the news. that someone from government was taking his idea seriously. Yes, our plain living, high thinking is a very nice idea. It seems that Katha himself is a farmer, and made millions from growing peanuts. Prabhupada grinned and returned to his opening idea. Capture American government, then all the world will follow. As they are known as communists, we should be known as Hare Krishnas. We are already known as such. Hare Krishna. Keep that name. People at least chant Hare Krishna. It is already well advertised all over the world. So keep this name, Hare Krishnas. Vote for Hare Krishna. Anywhere you live, you chant Hare Krishna. It was getting late. With the yawn, he brought the information. With the yawn, he brought the informal gathering to a close so that he could prepare for his night's engagement of Srimad Bhagavatam translation and commentary. Yeah, that's what we described yesterday, what he was doing at night, Srila Prabhupada. So every night, wherever in the world he would go, he will translate and comment the Srimad Bhagavatam. And an interesting thing, Prabhupada was traveling the world, so there was some difference of time, but he every time he kept the same schedule. Even if he didn't sleep, he kept it wherever he went to teach us. So we are going to shortly to read a little bit Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Adkanatiminandasya Gyanam Shanam Sharakriya Shaksu Smritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachaline Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatalini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we can read the two verses we read usually before Srimad Bhagavatam. We just thank and offer our obeisances to Vyasadeva and to wonderful personality. If you know, you can chant with me. Narayanam namaskrityam naram sheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato chayam udirayet. So it means Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So, just to tell you about that verse, not long ago, we went, it's called Harinam Tour, we go with the Russian devotees, with the devotee who is going to come to Baden-Oysen, Valmiki Prabhu. He's been organizing this tour for 20 years. And we went to visit the place where Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam, and where Ganesh was actually taking, dictation. And it was a very, very mystical, very beautiful place near Badrinath. And what was really moving, you had pictures of Vyasadeva and all the great personalities. And the last picture was a picture of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada would have been very, very happy to see acknowledgement from the saintly yogis in that place that he was very active in distributing the Srimad Bhagavatam and translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in Badrinath also, there is a place, it's a place actually of austerity where Narayana performed austerity. Okay, the other verse we can do together. Nastam Praishwabha Dirishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavatyutam Ashloki Bhakti Vavatina Ishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service and to the personality of Godhead, with praise by transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. And I just want to read also an invocation, very, very beautiful to you. It's written by Rupa Goswami. It's about the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatan Goswami. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar, churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent, transcendental fruit of all the Vedas. O, you are enriched with the jewel of all spiritual philosophical conclusions. O you, who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of the Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna, who has returned among us. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O given saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifested upon my heart and my throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. So we are going to be lucky to read one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you remember that's Canto 5, Chapter 10, and we are at the text 19. And it's, the title is called Maharaj Rahugana meets Chad Bharat. So, next. Who wants to read? Who is very good at the, please read the Sanskrit for all of us. Yeah, because it's
Aham cha yogeshwaram atmatat vidam manam paramam gulum vai prastum pravritta kim iha lanam tat sakshat harim snana kalamatinam.
it's difficult. It's a long one. It's difficult.
You don't have to read to repeat this. You can do word for word.
We do word for word.
If it isn't so difficult.
Yeah, it's a little difficult, unless somebody wants to. Somebody wants to try it? No. You're welcome.
Aham cha yogeshwaram atma tattva.
Aham Shveshwaram Atma Tattva
Vidam muninam paramam gurum vai.
Vidam Muninam Paramam Guru Vai
Ashtum pravritta kim iharanam tat.
Prashtum Pavitra Kim Taranam Tat
Sakshat darim jnana kalavatinam.
Sakshat Darim Jnana Kalavatinam. Okay. Aham, I, Cha, and Yogeshwaram, the master of all mystic power. Atma Tattva Fidam, of the learned scholars who are aware of the spiritual science. Muninam, of such saintly persons. Paramam, the best. Gurum, the preceptor. Vat, indeed. Prashtum, to inquire. Pavritra, engaged. Kim, what? Iha, in this world. Aranam, the most secure shelter. That which. Sakshat, Harim, directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Jnana Kala Avatinam, who has descended as the incarnation of complete knowledge in his plenary portion known as Kapiladev.
Who has descended as the incarnation of complete knowledge in his plenary portion known as Kapiladev.
Haribol. I consider, translation, I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sage, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give spiritual knowledge and you are a direct representative of Kapiladev, the incarnation of God, and the plenary portion of knowledge. I'm therefore asking you, O spiritual master, what is the most secure shelter in this world? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam abhi sarvesham yeah, go ahead, Prabhupada. Beautiful verse. Of all the yogi, he who abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 47. Chad Bharat was a perfect yogi. He was formerly the Emperor Bharat Maharaj, and he was now the most exalted personality among learned sages and the master of all mystic powers. Although Chad Bharat was an ordinary living entity, yet he narrated all the knowledge given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapiladev. He could therefore be taken directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his stanza to the Spiritual Master, what we're singing every morning, Shakshad Ali Tena Samastar Shastri. An exalted personality like Chad Bharat is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he fully represents the Lord by giving knowledge to others. Chad Bharat is herein accepted as the direct representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he was imparting knowledge on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Maharaj Rahugana considered that it was appropriate to ask him about Atma Tattva, the spiritual science. There is a Vedic injunction, Tad Vidyanartam Sagurum Svabhigachat. This Vedic injunction is also confirmed herein. If anyone is at all interested in knowing the spiritual science, Brahma Jigyasa, he must approach a guru like Bharat. The verse again, I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and you are a direct representative of Kapiladev, the incarnation of God, and the plenary portion of knowledge. I am therefore asking you, O spiritual master, what is the most secure shelter in this world? So it's a very important verse, and the whole chapter, that chapter 10, during that chapter, Chad Bharat is going to actually give a spiritual knowledge to Maharaj Rahugana. And the chapter is also explaining about what is a pure devotee, what is a spiritual master. So it's quite funny because it's also what we discussed yesterday. So just to very quickly to go back on this wonderful pastime, you remember who was Jacques Barat in his past life. You remember that he was actually the emperor of the world, that he was Bharat Maharaj, such an exalted emperor, so advanced in spiritual knowledge that the world was actually named after him. Like the world at the time was known as Bharat Varsha. And he renounced the world. And you know how he was very, very advanced in spiritual knowledge, but it was a great lesson for all of us. He actually became very, very attached to a small baby deer. You remember the mother deer, she was pregnant and she heard a very, very scaring, terrifying roar of a lion. And she became so scared, she was crossing the river and she fell into a cave. She died, but she had time to deliver the baby deer. And Jacques Barat, being very compassionate, decided to rescue the deer. And a baby in all the species of life is very, very attractive, very beautiful, very dependent. So little by little, Maharaj Bharat became so attached to the deer that his spiritual life and his spiritual practices, they started to decrease, to fall down. He was still doing his spiritual practices. At the time it was Yagya, but he was thinking of the deer, and even the deer was coming on the arena and was eating the grass of the sacrifice. It was very unclean, but he didn't mind too much. He was feeling, you know, very moved by the beautiful feature of that baby deer. And what happened, and what is a great, great lesson for us, when the time of death came, and the time of death is going to come for all of us, when the time of death came, his consciousness was completely focused upon the beautiful little deer. So he got the body of a deer, you know, but he got the blessing to keep his consciousness and to know why he got that body. So very quickly, in the body of the deer, he left the mother deer and he went into an ashram and listened to the sages. And his next birth was in a very exalted family, as Jacques Barat. Although he was very beautiful, he just covered all his luster by not cleaning himself and playing as he was a fool, as he was dumb, and he couldn't hear anything, he couldn't speak properly. So one day, you remember one day he was in the forest, and the king and the entourage of the king, Rahu Gana, came, and they needed someone else to carry the palanquin of the king. So they thought that a young man is very strong, and they asked him to come. So he came, but because he was respecting the principle of non-violence, he was very careful not to walk on the ants. And when he was stopping like that, it disturbed the pace of the other carriers of the palanquin. And as a result, the king was shaken, and then he became angry. And he began to say very bad words at Jacques Barat. He was identifying himself as a king, and he was telling, "I'm the king, you're my servant, you're going to be punished by Yamaraj." And at that time, for the benefit of the king, Shad Bharat starting to talk to him the highest philosophical principle. And then Maharaj Rahugana understood, and he came to his senses. He understood that here is a great saint, a self-realized soul. So he spoke that beautiful verse, the verse 19, and he's actually asking Shad Bharat to give him knowledge, because he understands he's a self-realized soul. So it reminds us of the beautiful verse of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is giving us the key to success, to spiritual life, and the key to success to pass our biggest exam. And the biggest exam, it's actually at the time of death. You know, that's our true exam, because it's going to determine our next life, our future. And if we pass it successfully, we will reach the lotus feet of Krishna next life. And Srila Prabhupada says it's possible. We should do it. We have all the tools. So you remember the beautiful verse where Krishna tells, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. And he carries on saying that the self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you, because he has seen the truth. So that's exactly what Maharaj Rahugana is asking to Shad Bharat. So we have just a very, very few minutes. Let's talk again. It's the same subject as yesterday. I didn't make it purposely, but it came like that. The verse is describing, the king is describing the quality of a spiritual master, of a self-realized soul. So, actually, a self-realized soul is the master of mystic power. So we can go to some Prabhupada's pastime about mystic power. You know, all the devotees who have been to Srila Prabhupada's classes while he was on the planet can tell you, I had the experience, and practically everybody will tell you, when I first came and I heard a class from Srila Prabhupada, I didn't have to ask my question. Prabhupada answered all my questions, and it was like that. I didn't have to ask. All the questions were answered. You know, all the existential deep questions. Also, Prabhupada, I remember, he was speaking, it was like he was speaking languages, you know. Like in France, he picked up a French word, and he knew what it was, and we were surprised. You speak French, Srila Prabhupada? Even he was speaking the languages of the animals. It was in Vrindavan. Yamuna Devi was cooking for Srila Prabhupada. And every time, at the same time, around noon or just maybe 12:30, there was a big she-monkey who was coming, and Yamuna was giving her some prasadam, some chapatis. And animals, they are really programmed. If you feed an animal, there is some biological clock inside, and the animal is going to come every day at the same time to get fed. And then Yamuna had to leave to go somewhere, and she didn't tell anybody about the monkey. She was not cooking herself when she came back. Yeah, she didn't go somewhere, no, sorry. But she didn't cook. So all of a sudden there was a big noise, and the monkey was there to get the food. And then she noticed something very extraordinary. She saw Prabhupada coming out and starting to talk to the monkey. You know, she couldn't really hear what he was saying, but he really talked to the she-monkey. And the monkey was listening, and then the monkey left. And Yamuna was so shocked. So she told Shyamsundar, I want to tell you something, but you're not going to believe me. You're going to think I'm crazy. No, I'm not going to tell you. So he says, yes, now you have to tell. So Prabhupada knows the language of the monkey. And then she asked Prabhupada, what did you say, Prabhupada, to the monkey? And he said, I told her to go away, you know, that she was disturbing. But she could really see there the conversation, and the monkey left. So it was some kind of mystic power. Somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, do you know everything? And he said, no, I just know what Krishna wants me to know. And we discussed yesterday about his sense of humor. A guest came and said, he showed his hand and Prabhupada, Swamiji, can you tell me what is my future? And Prabhupada said, we don't do these things. But he insisted many times. So Prabhupada, he could be an actor also. So he called a disciple, he said, bring a lamp. So they put show me your hand. And the man showed his hand. And then Prabhupada made a face, said, it's very bad. It's terrible. And the man says, what, Swamiji, what? Oh, I don't know if I should tell you. He said, I see old age, I see disease, and I see death. You know? Of course, the spiritual master, he knows the signs of Krishna perfectly. He knows he has the perfect, perfect sentence, perfect answer. When somebody is asking him something, Krishna is directing him. He can see what's inside the heart of the people. Yeah, he definitely. We have just a few minutes, but it's a point very important in that verse. You have come to give spiritual knowledge. You have descended for the benefit of all human society. So we have discussed yesterday how Krishna is very kind. Of course, he gives all humankind, he gives free will. Because without free will, it cannot be any love. Nobody can be forced to love someone else, even God. Even if we do it out of fear, it's not real love. And we've seen how Krishna wants a relationship of love. We've seen in the past times with the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So, even he gives free will, we misuse the free will, but still he's sending the pure devotee, the spiritual master, to try to lift up the consciousness of mankind and to reunite the conditioned soul with the Lord in their heart. Only that will satisfy the conditioned soul. And one time, although Prabhupada was very humble, and sometimes he would say, in my past life, I was this and that, and I didn't commit any sin. He would say things like that. But another time he said, a bit confidentially, he said, I was in the spiritual world and Krishna asked me to come to the material world. And he said, I didn't want to come. But Krishna really insisted. And although I didn't want, I did it. And Krishna said, do not worry, I will help you. I will help you to write books, I will help you to spread my message of love of God. So that's the mercy of the pure devotees. They come and they deliver the message. And after they deliver it, and they are like touchstones. It's like we had this, and still it's going on, this coronavirus. It was very, very contagious. But pure devotional service, Krishna consciousness, is even more contagious. You know, devotees are like touchstones, and like a touchstone can transform any normal stone into gold. The pure devotees, and pure devotees doesn't only mean somebody like Srila Prabhupada, but pure devotee, Prabhupada said, is also somebody who is actually practicing very sincerely Krishna consciousness. So pure devotees like touchstone, they transform each one of us. And we will also be able to deliver this message and transform others like that. So I think it's time. If you want to add anything, to share anything, or to ask any question, please feel welcome. Anybody wants to add any personal realization about the spiritual master? What's your name? Prabhupada?
Seth. Yes, Seth. Thank you for the wonderful class. We have learned so much.
Yes, sir.
I have just one little question. What was the view of Srila Prabhupada about Ekadashi?
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada, he introduced Ekadashi. So it was, for him, it was important to follow Ekadashi. But most important was to preach. He was following exactly his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was in the preaching mood very, very much. So Prabhupada introduced Ekadashi to us, encouraging us to chant more rounds. I remember we used to chant, if we could, 25 rounds, if it was possible, but he didn't, it was not like a rule, like he didn't make it a rule. And he would encourage us to do more spiritual activities, to lessen the material activities. And I don't know if you notice, but for me it's always like that. On Ekadashi, all the material activities, it's always a catastrophe. Always something wrong happens. If there is a meeting, or you know, there is something happening, or when it's material. Did you notice that material things in Ekadashi, they are not the same. They are more difficult. No? Somebody noticed? A little bit. And he, for the food, he told us simply not to take grains. This includes green peas and green beans. But he was not as specific and extreme as now some devotees are, influenced by, branches of our Indian Vaishnava family, like Gaudiya Math. They can be very strict. Some devotees, or we do it sometimes, we fast completely. Even some devotees don't drink water. But Prabhupada was not pushing for that. I mean, if somebody could do it and keep his or her Krishna consciousness as enthusiastically and do service, Prabhupada would be happy. But if it was at the detriment of service, he wouldn't be happy. Service and preaching is more important. Like there is an example of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It was Ekadasi, he came to the temple. There was one brahmachari who was lying, sleeping, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm so weak, it's Ekadasi." So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur went to the kitchen and he found some Mahaprashadam of rice and dal to the deities. He said, "You eat that, and you get up, and you do service, you know." So we have to find the right balance. It doesn't mean we have to eat rice and dal, but for our wonderful Prabhupada and wonderful Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we shouldn't misuse, Ekadasi and take it as an excuse to become lazy. And so the main principle is preaching and service, and serving the Vaishnava. And if we can, on top of that, it's very good. But if not, even a fasting day like Janmashtami, Prabhupada told us to fast, or Lord Chaitanya appearance day. But he said if it's too hard, you take some juice fruits or some fruits, because he wanted us always to serve, like devotional service or preaching. It's our saving grace. That's what will, give us the most purification. It's like he wouldn't want us to do severe austerities and just thinking of food, for example. It's not the idea. We have to think of Krishna. Does it answer? Anybody else want to share anything or ask anything? Yes, dear Krishna.
There Krishna gave us free will, but the pure devotee can misuse this free will in order, because he knows the will of Krishna, and he can interfere in our free will and force us, because he didn't give his like Krishna said, Krishna didn't interfere in our free will, but the pure devotee can do it. Is it right?
It's completely right. Yeah? That's why we said that the spiritual master is more merciful than Krishna in that way. But the spiritual master does that when we have accepted him. He doesn't force us in the beginning. I mean, he won't be very strict or forcing us when we don't accept him. Once we have accepted him, he will interfere quite strongly. Although this I have to lessen that statement, because not only the spiritual master, but all of us, simple devotees, we interfere with people when we sing Harinam, or when we distribute prasadam, or when we distribute books. Most people, they don't want to take the books. but we will interfere, we will tell them this book is going to make you happy. They say, I'm not interested. We may ask, what is your interest? What are you interested? Oh, I'm interested in psychology. Oh, you read this Bhagavad Gita? It's all about psychology. There is a good analysis of the mind, of the senses. So we interfere. So there is a very strong example how Prabhupada interfered. It was with a wonderful god brother that Prabhupada liked very much, but who had very strong mind, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. He was actually with his friend Vishnu Chan taking care of Radha Damodar party. Everybody knows what is Radha Damodar party? Yeah, it's the bus program. They were going all over America to the university and distributing so many books. But when Tamal Krishna Maharaj joined, he was so strong and he didn't listen so much to the other devotees. He was disturbing the temple presidents. Because when the bus party came, all the brahmacharis, it was a party of brahmachari, they left the temple services and they wanted to join Vishnu Chan Maharaj, because Vishnu Chan Maharaj was so attractive, such a wonderful devotee. So the temple presidents, they complained to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada went to see his dear disciple, and he told him, you leave the party, you leave the buses, you leave everything. You are not going anymore. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, but Prabhupada, it's not possible. We distribute so many books, more than anywhere in the world. Prabhupada says, it doesn't matter. You leave that service. You do anything you want, but you leave that service. And he had to interfere very strongly because Maharaj was so strong in his mind. And then Tamal Krishna was a little angry and he says, oh, I leave that service, what should I do? I could as well go to China, he said that like that. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, yes, that's what you're going to do. You're going to China. And at the time, even now it's still like that, but at the time more, it was really Maoist, communist, very heavy in China. The Tamal said, but Prabhupada, I just said that like that, I didn't mean it. You didn't mean it, but Krishna wants it. You're going to China. So very strong interference. And it was Krishna's plan, now it's starting to become wonderful in China, undercover. We have a lot of devotees, they come to Mayapur, mostly from yoga groups, and it's going to grow, and it will be, the next, like this is now in Russia. Everybody knows Krishna in Russia now. Like we were reading in the diary how Prabhupada says we should become Krishnas. People should know us as Hare Krishnas. So they call us in Russia Krishnaites. We are Krishnaites. So it will be like that in China. So that shows how actually Prabhupada, the spiritual master, can really interfere with our free will for our benefits and for the benefits of the world, of Krishna's mission. But that's mercy, and we love it. We love it. Anything else, dear devotees? Should we conclude? So thank you very much, and all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. You remember our best friend. Hare Krishna.